when it comes to business or B2B sales, what it makes it difficult and the sales cycle long is not necessarily the complexity of the product that we are selling, or the price point, or the market condition, although those parameters could have effect on the success of the sales. But what is the most important reason for the sales being lengthy and difficult to achieve is that the sales process itself, it's a complex process. What do we mean by that? Let me give you an example. For example, if a company A is trying to sell its paper towel, relatively a simple product, to a large account like McDonald's, that sales is going to take months, if not years, to be closed. The reason is there is so many people within this big organization that we are selling to that are being dragged into the sales process, and they're contributing into the approval of the sales, and they're acting as a different buyers within that organization, and the seller has to get a thumbs up from all these different buyers, which play different roles, in order to successfully close the order with this new and large account that is trying to sell its product to. So all these different buyers, we call them the buyers within the large account, can be categorized typically into three major groups, and it's important to recognize them and be able to understand what kind of mentality they have, at what kind of mood or mode they are in at the given time that we are dealing with them, and what are their personal win in the sales that we are trying to accomplish. There's so many elements we have to make sure that we cover with any of these buyers. But let me list the type of buyers that a selling company into a large account is going to be dealing with. So the first buyer is called the user buyer. The user buyer is the buyer who is going to be a person within that organization, or a few people within the organization we are selling to, that are going to be using our product. They are the end user of the product. For example, you can think of as the line or production line technician who is going to use the equipment that you're selling to this company. So it's end user. And it's important to know that this end user has a win in this transaction. Typically, most of the time, a personal win in it, and we have to recognize that, and make sure that we cover these users and make sure that they are happy with getting this product in their hands and using it. And so that's one group of users that has to be covered for the sales to be successful. The second group is the technical buyer. The technical buyer, think of the manager of that, the operator, for example, who would consider your product in terms of the usability of it, and what kind of process it's going to facilitate when it's purchased, and you can think of technical buyer as even somebody who is checking your product against certain regulatory guidelines, ISO guidelines, for example, or the safety matters that has to be checked. People who are going to analyze the data, for example, if there's a data coming out of your product that is going to be used, you could end up dealing with people who are checking the quality of the data or the accuracy of the data. So these are all technical buyers. And again, it's important to make sure that all these technical buyers that could be even the lawyers in the account, that they are checking certain contract components in your sales, as another example. So it could be a variety of people in different roles. They all kind of fall into this bucket of a technical buyer. And again, the user buyer, technical buyer, they cannot say yes to the sales in a sense that authorizing the purchase order, but they all can say no. And if they say no, any of those, that sales most probably is not going to happen. So it's important to get their thumbs up so they have the saying into the sales that we're making. And the process can take a long time to identify all of these, and especially in the larger accounts, people are going to shuffle around, and the people who you covered, they could move on to the other roles, and you have to start over with a new person and all that. So these are all the reasons the sales process could become pretty long when you're selling to a large account. The third group that are the buyers within the sales process, a complex sales process, are the economic buyer. And the economic buyer is typically a person who eventually says the final word or signs the purchase order or issues the budget for the sales to happen and the purchase order to be issued. In some companies, it's a committee of people who are deciding on the budget, but eventually, even within the committee, there is one person typically who makes the final call in terms of authorizing the payment. In some cases, that could become a rubber stamping, and might not be the most important or a decision maker in the sales, as people would call it. So it's not that always economic buyer is the decision maker in that sense, but it's a very important buyer that has to be covered. And in a lot of organizations, they are protected from the salespeople to be exposed to, or the salespeople to access to them. So it's very difficult most of the time to get a hold of the economic buyer, but it's important to cover that ground as well. And what happens if you don't cover any of these grounds is that we are leaving the sales to be on on luck, like being lucky in terms of getting a sales, and risking the fact that we might not be able to get the sales after so much time and energy we put into that particular account to get an order from. So this is basically the three buckets that are important to cover. And for those who are starting to build or in the middle of building a product that they're aiming to sell to other businesses, especially to larger accounts, I hope this helps those people who start to think about and get prepared and have the expectation that what is that they're going to be expecting in terms of closing a new sales, and how difficult it could be, and what are the right things to do, and how to be ready in terms of the timing and in terms of the budget that goes into these sales. The great thing with the B2B sales, especially to large accounts, is that it's sticky sales, in the sense that if you succeed to sell to a large account, it's very difficult or costly for the buyer to switch the seller. So you become a preferred supplier for that particular product or technology that you're offering to these clients. So the reward is big, but the upfront cost and upfront investment, time and money, and having the right people who have the skills to cover the grounds in the large accounts is crucial especially for startups and early stage companies who are just getting started with selling their product in the market, to get all these right and make sure that they can be successful in terms of getting new sales and selling to the accounts that they could come back and buy more from them and become more a loyal customer.